right, welcome back to another episode of the Karter Cast. I'm your host, Karter Baughan. With me, as always, Chase and Connor, back with NBA Podcast. We're recording right now, Monday, May 6th. It's around 12:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Let's just get right into it. We just watched one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. At first, we were texting earlier. I was like, all right, guys, we got to start off with Pacers-Knicks. That game was awesome, unbelievable. The Garden was rocking. And then this happens. Nuggets-Timberwolves. Timberwolves up 2-0 now. They just win tonight by 26 or 20-plus points. They blew them out. Wasn't close at all once tonight. End of the first quarter, Gordon has 13-plus, and somehow the Timberwolves are still up 8. It's crazy. The Timberwolves up 2-0 right now. Connor, I'll start with you. Panic button on the Nuggets. Like, what's happening? What's happening? No Rudy Gobert tonight either, to add that.
Correct, yeah. And so if you're the Nuggets, I mean, after game one, I wasn't ready to push the panic button. Timberwolves come out hot, young team, hungry, first real playoff run. I wasn't ready to push the panic button yet. Now I'm starting to hover over it to kind of steal what I said from another episode. I'm hovering. I'm not going to smash it right now. It's the Nuggets. It's the defending champions. Last time I doubted them, they came out and won the finals last year. So I'm not ready to smash it yet, for being honest.
Smash it. Chase, what about you?
I think I'm hitting it. You just lost your entire home court advantage. You're down 0-2 and you got to travel to Minnesota to play the next two games there. If this isn't a time to panic, is it down 3-0? Like, this is just about as bad as it's going to get for Denver right
3-0,
now.
3-0, the panic button's not even there. The panic button's gone. You're like, you're done. I mean, 3-0 is a literal death sentence. It's 25 to life.
To be fair, if it was any other team in the league, I would be saying smash the panic button right now. But just because it's the Denver Nuggets with Jokic and Murray, if he gets a little bit healthier and these guys that can get hot, if Michael Porter has one of those games like he did in the Lakers series, they're right back in it. They take one game in Minnesota, they're right back in it. I really do feel that way. I will say the one worrisome thing for me, the number one takeaway I had from tonight, every single bucket for Denver, especially in that first half when it was still competitive, was a war. It was an all-out battle. Minnesota had a hand in every passing lane. They had a hand on every loose ball. They had a hand on every shot contest. They were right in their grill, in Denver's grill. They couldn't get a clean offensive set-off. Even with Jokic, the best player in the league, the best offensive facilitator, they could not get a clean possession in the first half. And if that continues, if that offense stays stagnant in Minnesota, then yeah, the series is probably over. But I don't think it is. With Jokic at the helm, I don't think the offense is as bad as it is tonight.
Yeah, and also, I think these calls might change a little bit. I think they're going to have some little, get together of some refs. And I think we're going to start seeing a lot more fouls called for the Nuggets in Game 3 because there were some calls tonight. You're like, man, Mike Malone, he's got a point, man. Like, he should be barking at those refs, especially early on. They weren't getting anything. And Minnesota, like, this is a credit to them. I'm not saying the Nuggets got screwed or anything tonight by any means. Minnesota was 1,000% better. Cat came out and said, all right, I'm taking over. Rudy Gobert's out. I'll step up. It's my game. I'm going to dominate tonight. And he did. He came out early. He was hitting step back, fade away 20-footers. Like, what was happening? Like, they're just on, man. There is something about them where it's just, like, I don't know if it's Team of Destiny. I don't know what it is, but they're just so confident. Like, everything's just gelling perfectly at the right time. Chase, what's going on? Like, how is Minnesota doing this?
I kind of talked about last podcast how I really thought Minnesota was they were bred in a lab to compete with this Nuggets team. And I really think it's come down to the guard play. Mm-hmm. Jamal Murray's been absolutely neutralized. Saturday night, it was in the first half. He kind of found his shots later on in the game. Tonight, I mean, this stat line's pretty hideous, guys. I mean, we got Murray with 3 of 18 from the field, 0 for 4 from 3, 2 assists and 8 points. I mean, you're just not going to be able to get anything with that. And the key to stopping Denver really is stopping Murray. Jokic is going to get his. He's the best player on earth. But if you can get that stat line from Jamal Murray, I don't know where else. I mean, you had a great game from Aaron Gordon, and you still were, down 30 most of the second half. So it's really come down to NAW and Jaden McDaniels going out there and just absolutely torturing Murray. I know there's a clip going around Twitter right now of him just getting trapped in the corner right past half court and complaining to the refs and seeing what he can do and just absolutely flailing out there. And that's been the story for me.
That possession,
Connor.
the ball didn't get past the logo of the Denver Nuggets court until 5 seconds on the shot clock on that possession. It's just nuts what this Minnesota defense is doing. And my big question about Denver is, When is it going to change? In the Lakers series, we were like, oh, they'll heat up. They're just getting acclimated to the playoffs. Like, they're going to come back no matter what. We can live bet them. We'll live bet Denver and ride that wave. This isn't the Lakers. Denver has trailed at halftime in 6 of their 7 games so far this postseason. That has to change against this Minnesota team. They're not going to roll over. They're not going to start missing shots. They are not going to unlock in defensively. Like, this team is going to be locked in for 48 minutes. The Nuggets have to come out faster. And whether that's Murray's injury or not, they have to find a way to come out faster and get a lead going into halftime because Minnesota's too good to fold like the Lakers did in all those games.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point too. The other big thing that like is kind of jarring and it's exposing a lot in these playoffs is, and this is a big win for the NBA as a whole, the regular season's showing how much it matters. And that's very evident in these playoffs because you look at the teams who really, truly gave a crap in the regular season. Timberwolves, Thunder, Celtics, Knicks. Probably the top 4 teams that truly, truly gave a crap every single night in the regular season. And they're reaping the rewards right now. They're clearly most prepared. They're clearly best suited for these playoffs right now. And the chemistry is there for these teams. The Nuggets, you can see, I think this is proving like, yes, the Warriors got away with it in 22 where they were able to turn it on in the playoffs. Somehow, some way they were able to turn it on in the playoffs. I just don't think that's going to be a thing anymore unless you have such a ridiculously talented team. But I don't think we have those teams for a while with these cap rules and the CBAs and people just mortgaging their futures just to win right now. We're not going to have these super talented teams like that. And so, like, you have to be on in the regular season now. And I think this is great going forward when we predict playoff predictions and predict the NBA Finals that, hey, the regular season actually does matter. Being the 1 seed, being the 2 seed actually does show, hey, we give a crap. I know Minnesota's the 3, but same thing. They were tied with the Nuggets on the record and everything. So, but any other takeaways? What's some of the main takeaways? I'll start with you, Connor.
I think that was a great point you just made about the regular season right there because if you look at it, for the last few years, it's been, oh, the Suns, if they get everybody healthy, even when they had Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton, it was like, oh, if they get everybody healthy, they're going to make a run. If the Clippers can get Kawhi and Paul George healthy, they're going to make a run. Once again, this year, a lot of inconsistency, a lot of guys sitting out, a lot of injuries. They're not playing together a ton. Or that Brooklyn Nets team with Kyrie, Harden, and KD. But these teams, they can't just turn it on for the playoffs. Even if they get a decent seed, they're playing a 3 seed or a 5 seed. The league is too talented. 1 through 8, the league is too talented for them to just not play together during the regular season and then try to fumble it together during the playoffs and go on a run. It's not going to happen. And you saw it this year. Suns, Clippers, both round 1 exits. That's all I got to say about that. That was my main takeaway from the schedule.
The other thing, too, is I'll add to that. You mentioned the Mavericks. Kyrie Irving had a normal season this year and played. And we're seeing how much that matters right now with the Mavericks, even though we haven't seen their game yet as we're recording Monday night, May 6th. They play tomorrow, and we'll preview that one later on. But, Chase, anything else from this series, anything you wanted to hit on?
As I was sitting there just figuring what the heck is going to, what's going on with this Nuggets team, I was between, is this just the Nuggets falling apart, or is this Minnesota actually playing good? Are they legit? And I got to tell you, I got to leave a lot of props to Minnesota. This team looks pretty dang legit. They have the defense to keep up and neutralize just about anyone. And then, of course, the offense. Including the Boston Celtics. And then they have the offense in Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns to score points whenever they need. I mean, Anthony Edwards has risen, and he's been kind of the biggest story of this whole playoffs, right? Of becoming that guy, future face of the league and all that stuff. And he's shown it in the biggest games of his career up to this point over and over again. And he has had one stinker in the first round, none so far this series, and has been able to get his shot up. And Minnesota's scary. They're legit. I don't know if the league and us as fans are ready to kind of say, like, this team can actually be a title contender, because that wasn't the thought a week ago.
Questions got to be asked here about Minnesota. And the thing is, if you're the NBA, you would love a New York Knicks versus Anthony Edwards matchup in the finals. That's like their wet dream. I'm telling you right now. Knicks, Madison Square Garden, Wolves, Anthony Edwards. I think it is. You saw it tonight in the Pacers game. They love the Knicks.
No. I'm not discounting the Knicks at all. I think Knicks Celtics is happening, whether you like it or not. They are making sure Knicks Celtics is happening for every TV rating. But Yeah, I mean, I think T-Wolves being in the finals is probably the best case scenario out of the West, right? Like,
I completely agree.
because you need the American star. Like, yeah, like Luka's huge, but the Thunder, they're the smallest market in the league, and the Nuggets are kind of like, we get it, we've seen it. Jokic, the I hate basketball stuff is kind of getting old, and it gets really old when you're losing. So I wonder if we see that turn as well. When Jokic is like, I don't want to be here, I want to be with horses and all that kind of stuff. Like, does it just flip and everyone's like, dude, F this guy? Like, oh, all of a sudden I don't care. All of a sudden I care about basketball after losing. Like, let's go. Like, come on.
It's already flipping that way. There was a lot of comments I saw tonight on social media where it's like, yeah, the Nuggets are awesome, but when they're losing, they're insufferable. And tonight they kind of were to start the game. Now, to be fair, they were getting screwed on some of these calls, but I do think.
How funny is Michael Porter Jr.'s podcast tour going to be after this season? I mean, he's already doing it during the playoffs. He's on the Note Boys.
It's going to be generational. But the thing is, if you're the NBA, best case scenario is Anthony Edwards making a run like this. He is your most marketable star right now that's from America, period. He's going to be the face of the league.
Yeah, I just couldn't stop thinking about Michael Porter Jr. on a 3-hour Joe Rogan podcast.
Is John Stockton going to be co-hosting?
Could you imagine like Joe Rogan just being like, "Hey, Michael Porter Jr., what do you think of aliens?" Oh yeah, how dumb would that conversation be? The other thing I wanted to point out from this series, especially tonight, Rudy Gobert out. This is great for me as a Rudy Gobert hater. Huge win for us. Huge win for us.
Theory?
Maybe no, I'm not willing to go that far yet.
Okay,
but it's sprinkled. It's sprinkled out there. But Connor, we talked about the KD Gobert trade at that clip. I put out that clip today, and we were saying, yeah, we take KD. Even in hindsight, blah blah blah, whatever. Looking great for us. I mean, the T-Bulls come out, win by 20 plus, whoop the Nuggets in Denver without Rudy Gobert. Great night for the Rudy Gobert haters.
New clip for you. Should Naz Reid start over Rudy Gobert?
But not being serious though. This is why Rudy Gobert haters have fuel with Defensive Player of the Year bullcrap, because they neutralized. They didn't miss him at all tonight on the defensive end at all in any way. There wasn't one part tonight you're like, man, I really wish we had Rudy Gobert on defense. No, they didn't need him. Like maybe in the regular season it's a different story, but in the playoffs. That's my problem with Rudy Gobert. And I understand Defensive Player of the Year is a regular season award. I get it, but go ahead.
Mm-hmm. I was just saying they played it differently tonight without him. They had 4 wings, or point guard, 3 wings, and a big, so they were able to fly around more, trap the ball more, pressure more, 94 feet. Now, they didn't have that, Defensive Player of the Year in the paint protecting the rim, but they were able to switch more on the outside. They were able to pressure the ball more up the court. And credit to the Minnesota coaching staff, whether it's Micah Norrie or Chris Finch, whoever's calling the shots, that was impressive. To change up your defensive scheme like that and still be smothering, it's impressive. So I don't know. Yeah. Chase, you feeling any stock going low on the KD, trade TikTok?
Listen, they still swept the Suns. They still cooked the Suns.
Fair.
And I think head-to-head matters. Head-to-head matters.
The other thing, the one point I want to give props to Cat tonight too. Again, not just the scoring, but early on. I don't know if you guys noticed in the first quarter, he got kind of pushed around a little bit. He tried doing the flopping thing, and he tried getting those calls early on, and he's trying to sell it a little bit. And he realized he wasn't going to get those tonight. He's like, "All right, I have to play physical," and he did. He turned it on. He said, "All right, I'll go. I'll bang down low with you guys. I'll bang with these guys."
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great
What's up, Chase?
question.
You
good? Yeah. When a dude's banging you and you can feel his body.
Anything else from this? We'll do real quick. Is Denver going to come back in the series down 0-2? Connor, go.
I think they'll come back and make it a series, but I'm going to flip my pick and say Minnesota in 7 now. I think they're too good.
Chase.
I think they'll win a few games. It'll be interesting. Minnesota in 6.
So neither of you guys think a sweep is happening?
No, I can't see it. Not the defending champions. They won't go out that way.
Timberwolves are going to be favored in Game 3. And if they win Game 3, the sweep's happening. Go ahead, Connor. Go ahead, Chase.
Yeah. I was texting some people. This was a lot like how I felt as a Boston fan last year, headed into that Miami series, right? Where you get the 8 seed Heat, and this Minnesota team's different than that team, obviously. But just to go down like this, drop your first 2 games at home in embarrassing fashion, it's really hard to come back from. And the Celtics were obviously very close, probably a Jason Tatum injury away from being the first team to come back from down 3-0. But this is the Timberwolves. This isn't the Heat with Jimmy Butler and Max Strus and Gabe Vincent. If Denver loses this game 3, it's not going more than 5. It's a sweep or a gentleman's sweep easily. So, but I think Denver needs to. They got to play desperate. You can't fake that. And I wouldn't pick them, but I like their chances a little bit better in game 3 just because of that desperation factor.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think it's Minnesota. I think it's Minnesota in 7. Maybe in 6. I really want to see how they come out. Like you mentioned, Chase, that they're going to come out desperate in game 3. The Nuggets are. I think that's true. I wonder how much home court matters. Because Kevin Harlan pointed this out in the broadcast today. He was like, "Well, neither of these teams won at home against each other, and how much does that factor into the playoffs? Like, both teams are comfortable winning on the road, but and then how much stock do you put into the regular season? It's so tricky because it's just how much does that actually matter?
I would say you can't take too much from the regular season. And I know you went on the tangent, Karter, about the regular season mattering and stuff. But at the end of the day, the last week of the regular season is going to matter if there's 80 games, if there's 60 games, if there's 20 games. Like that last game of the regular season is going to matter in most scenarios if teams actually take it seriously. I think you can draw certain takeaways from regular season matchups, but there's so many instances where this guy's out, this guy's resting, this guy fouled out, this guy's not playing tonight, where it's like, what can you really take from it? You can take little bits and pieces, like this guy matches up well here, play this defensive scheme here. But as far as like overall putting too much stock into that, I don't think you can do it.
Remember, everyone thought that the Phoenix had a chance because they literally beat Minnesota every time they met in the regular season, right? But Minnesota came out, and it's hard to, you can't recreate playoff intensity. And Minnesota had it. I mean, they're hungry and they're ready to go. And Denver, as we've pointed out, is the exact opposite. They lollygagged through their first series with the Lakers, and now they're paying the price here.
Yep. Real quick, we'll move on to the next. We'll move on to Pacers Knicks here in a second. Real quick before we get into that, guess the line for Game 2: Timberwolves Nuggets in Minnesota. Connor, I'll start with you.
I'm gonna say Minnesota by 2.5.
Chase.
I think it's a little bit more than that. Minnesota 4.5.
Minnesota by 4.5.
Really?
Minnesota by 4.5.
The way the books were, talking about live betting the Nuggets tonight, and they were only 7-1 when they were down 25 at halftime. I thought they would get a little more respect.
Yeah, plus 725. Plus 725. Like, you're just stealing money from people at that point. Like, you're an idiot if you live bet the Nuggets at halftime down 26.
They were scarred from the Lakers game. They were scarred, Karter.
We got Celtics minus 11.5 tomorrow. That might be free money. Summer's asking. No, tomorrow. We'll get into that series. I'm excited to talk about that one. But real quick, Pacers Knicks. This game was tonight in the Garden. The Garden was unbelievable, like I mentioned earlier. Very close game. Came down to a bunch of controversial calls. If I'm a Pacers fan, I'm walking away from that game absolutely livid. They have every right to be pissed off. Every conspiracy theory should be running through their heads right now if I'm a Pacers fan. Insane calls at the end. But I do agree with the refs on the, when you're reviewing it, they couldn't the Miles Turner play was going to be upheld where it was the moving screen because you can see the tiny movements. But then you go back to the DiVincenzo screen right before that. You're like, okay, are you kidding me? Like, how is that not called? The inconsistency has been ridiculous by the referees in these playoffs. But Pacers Knicks, game 1, the Knicks take it. Brunson with a 40-plus point performance once again. It's every night. His points prop is 36.5 at this point. 36.5 in the playoffs. It's crazy. The Knicks are back. The Knicks are the Knicks a legitimate title contender? Probably not. I think that might be too far. I don't think they can beat the Celtics and these other teams, but Jalen Brunson, man, he might we love talking about Anthony Edwards, but he might be the best player in these playoffs, Connor.
I think that's fair to say, but if you're the Knicks and the whole strategy of playing all 5 of your guys 48 minutes, I don't really know how far that's going to take you. in these playoffs. I mean, it's worked now through the first series and then, one game into the second round. But if these guys are playing 47, 48 minutes a night, you got to think eventually they're going to get gassed. Now, I know regular season they were playing 40-plus minutes, and they're prepared for this, but this is a lot of games, a lot of high intensity in a very short amount of time. Eventually, that's going to catch up with them, and especially their jump shooting. But with the Knicks, their intensity, their rebounding, Josh Hart especially, like that will keep them in every game. They will not get blown out in many of these games because that intensity, because that rock fight style of play that everybody, I guess, loves to watch now. And it sucks for this game in game one because it was 43, 44 minutes of great basketball. I mean, I loved watching that game. It was great. And then the last 4-5 minutes of the game, it comes down to officiating. And that's going to be what everybody takes away. Instead of, wow, what a duel, like Brunson getting 40 points and the Pacers keeping up, like have they arrived and all these big plays. Instead, it's the Pacers got screwed. The refs love the Knicks. The NBA wants the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals. Rigged job at Madison Square Garden. Nobody's talking about the game anymore. They're talking about the officiating, which is fair. I think that's fair.
Yeah, my two takeaways from this game, though, really, like the officiating was bad, whatever. Officiating's bad all the time. Mainly it was no player on the court wanted the ball in their hands at the end of that game on either team except for Jalen Brunson, and that was really the difference.
Yep.
As simple as that is to say, it's not great analysis, but when you're watching the game, he's the only one that looked comfortable with the ball in his hands. And the other thing, when you're watching the game, I don't know how you guys felt, but every single time he crossed the three-point line, you're like, oh, he's making this shot. He's making this layup. He's making this floater. You never thought he was missing. Those turnaround, step-back, fadeaway 10-footers over Aaron Nesmith or whoever's guarding him, bang, every single time. Back of the rim, in every single time, especially in the clutch. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen someone this calm in the clutch, man. It's unbelievable what he's doing. It shouldn't be understated. Chase, what are your takeaways from game one and then going forward?
First off, super fun, and refs ruined it, but we already talked about that. But also super weird. This is not a traditional Knicks game. Both teams getting well over 100. You have a lot of players for the Knicks in double digits. I mean, this is not how they play. It was very surprising. You obviously have a legendary Brunson game, which is just becoming normal at this point. Really good Josh Hart game. Really good DiVincenzo game. And you still barely won. You also had a six-point performance from Halliburton. You still barely beat the Pacers. Super weird game for the Knicks. Shout out Halliburton also for going under 2.5 threes. I just think, that the Knicks need to get back to their identity. They won this game. They stole it with the home crowd and maybe some questionable calls. But if they're going to control this series, I'd be pretty nervous if I was a Knicks fan right now. That's my take on this whole thing, because the Pacers' pace, not to make a pun there, but the way that they pushed the basketball and the way that they shot it and the intensity that they brought and kind of set the tone in this game was surprising, because the Knicks are at home, right? And with Coach Tibbs, this is his identity, is to punch you in the mouth and make you play his brand of basketball. It was the exact opposite tonight. The Knicks kept up, right? They hit big shot after big shot, and Brunson was huge and knocking down threes left and right in the Garden. But really, the Knicks need to kind of figure out how to slow down these Pacers and keep things the way that they want to play.
Go ahead, Connor.
Well, that's the thing. You mentioned the Knicks needing to get back to playing their game, to lessen the pace, to play that kind of rock fight style of basketball. How much can you really do that against the Pacers? Because they're looking to push the ball in every made basket. Like, they are forcing their play style down your throat. That's what they did all season long. They led the league in pace, or they were second in pace, I think. If I'm the Pacers, this one stinks. This was their chance to steal one in New York in the Garden, game one, come out, and really have a chance in this series. And everything we saw in this game leads us to believe this will be a competitive series. Indiana can hang. Halliburton had a horrible game.
7 games.
Here's the thing. I don't trust Indiana at all. I think this game one loss is a killer for a young team like that, and I think the Knicks win in 5 games.
Knicks in 5?
Wow.
Knicks in 5. I think game 2 is a complete blowout. Maybe Indiana gets game 3, but I think the Knicks are a better team, and the Pacers not being able to steal this game when they should have, when they got a horrible Halliburton game and they were still in it, I think that's just the nail in the coffin, and I'm already ready to call my shot after game 1.
What about, but let's say in game 2 Halliburton does play well, then? Because, who really
What are the odds on that? What are the odds on that? 25-1? He's been horrible
true.
this playoffs.
He's been horrible. That's true. But I mean, I'm saying the Knicks are going to win this series too. But also, the Knicks had some pretty awesome performances tonight yes, Jalen Brunson, the 40-point performance is just becoming the norm now. We just have to accept that, I guess, at this point. But Josh Hart with almost yet another triple-double. Dante DiVincenzo turned it on as well. Like, I feel like the tide turns a little bit. I still think it's a close game, but I think it's a different kind of close game we see in Game 2, if that makes sense. I don't think it's a blowout in Game 2.
Yeah. They're only playing 5 guys, though, so it's going to be a lot easier to put these big numbers when you're on the court for 46 minutes a game. So that's why I don't want to get too caught up in the numbers game. I think the Knicks offense played about as well as they could tonight, but that Pacers defense is so bad, I think it's replicable. I really do. And I think the Knicks defense is usually good enough to kind of hinder the Pacers offense going forward, especially against a young, inexperienced team.
This series has a lot of 2021 Sixers-Hawks vibes.
Yeah,
where you have the Sixers were clearly better than that Hawks team, and the Knicks are better than the Pacers. More talented, better players. You can argue about who's the better coach or whatever, but for some reason, the Hawks just and Ben Simmons, the Hawks were able to steal that series. I think the Pacers are in that category where they shouldn't be here. They kind of looked out with injuries to the Bucks, right? And they came in, they kind of scared New York a little bit. I think they're legit of a chance. That being said, I do see a possibility in what Connor's saying is true. With this young team, it's really deflating to lose a game like that, especially
to go off
your
little analogy there. Trae Young went on a generational run for the Hawks that year. Halliburton has to be the guy he was in the first 3 months of the season. There's no chance, and I don't think he's getting back to that. At least coming up.
And the other thing I wanted to point out too was, if these games are close, the Knicks are winning 100% of the time because of Jalen Brunson. 100%. You don't trust a single player on that Pacers team to say, all right, you're down 20 seconds left, go score. You're not taking anybody on that Pacers team to score. Aaron Nesmith, Tyrese Halliburton, Pascal Siakam, Miles Turner. You're not taking any of those cats to score. Jalen Brunson is going to win that game 100% of the time over you. That's why I also agree with you, Connor, because I think it's almost worse if there's another close game and Jalen Brunson comes out and just nails him in the clutch again and just wins at the end.
Yep.
And I think that's just what deflates them. And then they're like, dude, we just can't beat this guy in the clutch. We can't.
Well, the Pacers don't have a true number one. They don't have a number one option, a guy that you can give the ball to and say, go get me a bucket. They have 2 number twos in Halliburton and Siakam.
Is it time to do Brandon Ingram trades on the podcast?
It might be. It might be. Man, that sure would slow down their pace. They don't have a number one, though. They have 2 number twos in Halliburton and Siakam. They have a number 3 in Miles Turner. And a team like that has Andrew Nembhard getting possessions by himself, ISO on the wing, step back 3 with 90 seconds left, that's not a team that's ready to win a second-round series. They don't have an identity like that. They need a number one guy. Paul George, go back to Indiana. You can be that guy. But the thing is, they don't have the number one guy taking a shot like that. You can say, hey, ISO on the wing. We need a bucket. There's 90 seconds left. It's game 1 in the Garden. They don't have anybody like that. Tyrese Halliburton couldn't wait to get the ball out of his hands.
Oh, every time. Every time.
Usually to the Knicks.
Oh, sorry. Real quick. He was just waiting. He wanted that screen and pop so fast and just dish it off immediately.
Yeah, it's like hot potato.
Yeah, I was just saying. Yeah, usually couldn't wait to get rid of the ball to a Knicks player there in the clutch there. No, the one thing I'll say about this, just to zag, I agree with you guys. I just think this Pacers team is they're playing on borrowed time. They got house money. Like I said, I don't think they should be here. Very much like they're super reminiscent of that Hawks team, who was just a couple wins away from playing in the finals. If we don't remember, and they have guys. They don't have a number one option, but they just have cats that like to. And have like the balls to take shots, and they can make them, right? Obi Toppin going between the legs,
no stopping,
in the middle of the third quarter, like that's kind of just this team in a nutshell. And so they can be dangerous if they have, they have that overconfidence, and if they can hit those shots. The question is, will they? I don't think so, and that's where I agree with you.
The Pacers. I know Pacers fans aren't going to want to hear this. This feels more like a flash in the pan than an actual a rival. Like the Thunder, the Timberwolves, that's an arrival. That's hey, we're here for the next 10 years. We are going to be a top 3 seed in the West for the next decade. We're going to be title contenders. The Pacers, I don't get that vibe. It's not like, hey, this is the first run of a sustained period of success. This is more of a fun team in a weak Eastern Conference with a lot of injuries, and we had some fun. But I don't see this being a thing in the future at all.
21 Hawks. Yeah, I'll keep saying it.
That's a perfect comparison. Yeah. I really think so.
One thing I wanted to point out, Jalen Brunson's contract, man, it is highway robbery for the Knicks. It's the best deal in sports, what they're getting right now. His average annual salary is $26 million. Gordon Hayward, Jordan Poole, Chris Paul, Tobias Harris all are making $30+ million a year. RJ Barrett makes more money than Jalen Brunson. Like, put that into perspective. The craziest part is Bradley Beal is worth 2 Jalen Brunsons according to their contracts. Like, it's unbelievable what the deal the Knicks got. It's insane.
That's a great summer pod where we do like best value contracts in professional sports, and we can dig into like some baseball stuff or whatever you want to do, because I don't know a lot about that. I'm not digging into baseball
stuff. I'll be 100% honest.
We can at least do football and basketball then.
Shout out the Mets bullpen. That's all I got.
But yeah, no, you're exactly right, Karter. And that's the thing with Jalen Brunson and the Knicks is like, you got this guy on such a great contract moving forward. This kind of does feel like an arrival where it's like, hey, we got some flexibility in the future. We can get some guys. It's New York, so there's always going to be superstars linked to New York, no matter what. And now they're actually contending, and now they actually have a legitimate, solid team with great defense and all the intangibles and all the Josh Harts and DiVincenzo's and Anunobis that you want on your team. They're primed for one big move to really arrive next year. So I'm excited to see. First time Knicks have been relevant in a long time.
Yeah. Zach LaVine, $46 million a year.
Jesus Christ.
Wait. Got that wrong. $43 million a year for Zach LaVine.
Oh, well, that's not as bad then.
Yeah, that's not as bad. I mean, these are crazy. The people listed above Jalen Brunson are out. Like Jaren Jackson, Andrew Wiggins, Julius Randle. Like, and that's the other part. The Knicks are doing this all without Julius Randle, which is crazy too.
While we're on Jalen Brunson, last thing I wanted to say real quick is, Karter, we texted about this a little bit earlier. Him doing what he's doing at his size in today's NBA, where there's guys that are 6'8", 6'9", with a 7-foot wingspan getting thrown on him, it's unbelievable. Every movement, every little angle he has to take, every single like shot arc he has to put on the ball is insane, because he can't, mess up or he's going to get blocked. He's that short. But he takes every angle. He perfectly uses his body to get to the rim every single time. It's genuinely fun to watch. It really is.
It's like he took the best traits of Luka Doncic, but also has the body and play style of James Harden a little bit. It's James Harden and Luka put into one kind of. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Like Todd Gurley.
Todd Gurley, yeah. Last thing I had on this Pacers Knicks thing. We'll do predictions here in a second after game one, but last thing I had on this, Stan Van Gundy was phenomenal tonight on the broadcast. Phenomenal.
He's not afraid to call it like it is.
It was so refreshing to hear him. And this boils back to my other point. Sorry, Connor's former employer, but ESPN is dog poop. And it's so bad right now. ESPN could solve all their commentating problems, get the A-list broadcast crew for the NBA Finals if you just put Mike Breen and the Van Gundy brothers together. It would be great. It would be great. That's all they have to do, and that would be the number one broadcast going on the NBA right now. Doris Burke and J.J. Redick aren't cutting it. Doris Burke and Doc Rivers weren't cutting it. Richard Jefferson, he's fine, I guess, but Reggie Miller, not great for TNT. That would be so much better. The Van Gundy brothers, it's crazy that Jeff Van Gundy's not calling games, man. It's crazy.
How much basketball are we going to be talking when they're on the call together, though? I mean, it's like 40% basketball, 60% nonsense.
That's the best part. That's the best part.
That's fair.
Like, but they also, I don't want to hear like, oh, this commentator is in love with Joel Embiid, and I'm just going to be a Joel Embiid propagandist the whole broadcast. Oh, like, at least they're attacking the officials. These other commentators are too afraid. Oh, these refs, they have really hard jobs. Like, no, call them out. The replays are taking forever. They made a terrible call. They get paid good money to make these calls correct. And I just appreciate that Van Gundy's doing that. What? Oh,
not to get too deep into the weeds here, but you got to think the league does not want that. If all of a sudden all of TNT's broadcast teams are calling out the refs, you want to know what's going to happen on the next media rights deal? They're going to get boned, and they're going right back to NBC. Like, this is a whole big scheme, Karter. Like, they do not want officials being publicly criticized on a broadcast like that. They get enough of it on like Twitter and social media. They don't want that.
Yeah, I actually think that's a really good point, but I still think it's stupid, and it would be way more entertaining to have the Van Gundys.
I agree. As a consumer, completely agree.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
Yeah, but all right, real quick, I'll start with you, Chase. After game one, Knicks up 1-0. Series predictions for Knicks Pacers. Chase.
I think Pacers get a few games, but ultimately New York's better. Brunson's the best player. I'm gonna go Knicks in 6. I think they win it in Indiana.
Connor.
After game one, I'm calling my shot. I think losing in the Garden in a tight game like this was the nail in the coffin for a young, inexperienced team like Indiana. I'm going Knicks in 5. I think they sealed their fate tonight by losing that game.
I'm going Knicks in 6. I think Jalen Brunson, when the game gets tight, the Pacers are going to lose that game 100% of the time. Jalen Brunson's the only player on the court that wanted the ball at the end of the game, and that's how it's going to be the whole series. Give me Knicks in 6. I think the Pacers steal a couple, but in the end, I think the Knicks win in 6. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll move into the other series real quick. All right, let's do Thunder Mavericks. We're recording right now. Like I said, I'm going to mention it again, Monday, May 6th, just so people get this out there. So we know, people are like, oh, you clipped this after, you said this after. No. We're saying this before.
Always a few.
Yeah, there's always a few of those comments out there. But anyhow, Thunder right now, minus 130 to win the series on FanDuel. Mavericks plus 106. Connor, I'll start with you. Where do you have the series going? Who do you have winning it? What's going on?
This is a tough one for me because round one, I wasn't betting against Oklahoma City, but I was like, man, Pelicans, they've got some length. They can really take this team to 6 or 7 games. They get absolutely stomped. So I was wrong there. And I'm hesitant to do this again, but I think this is going to be another 7-game series. That's my prediction. I think Thunder, Dallas, I think it goes 7 games. Here's the thing. Oklahoma City, I saw this note. I forget whose preview I read. I'm sorry if I'm forgetting the name here. Oklahoma City led the league in points off turnovers with more than 20 per game. But Dallas has the 4th lowest turnover rate in the NBA. Something's got to give there. The one thing I'm worried about with Dallas is OKC has a plethora of one-on-one defenders they can throw at Luka and Kyrie. Cason Wallace, Lou Dort, Jalen Williams. They can just hound these guys all night long, and they might not have to blitz and trap as much as these other teams. I think that kind of plays in Oklahoma City's favor. Unless P.J. Washington and Derrick Jones Jr. shoot like 50% from 3, I think Thunder pull this off in 7.
Yeah, I'm worried if I'm a Mavericks fan too. Real quick, the Mavericks, they dodged a bullet, man. I think it was 97% of people bet the Mavericks to beat the Clippers, the series betting on all the sports books. And somehow the Mavericks still came out on top because the Clippers are just a disaster. But anyhow, Chase, what are your takeaways going into this series?
Really excited for it. I like OKC a lot. Of course, they're a super fun team, very young, lots of great players. Mavericks are really fun too. I think people, are kind of sleeping on, they'd be a great league pass team, but this is playoffs. You obviously have Luka, who's a generational guy. You have Kyrie, who's normal again, which is good news for everyone. And then you have, I think, a lot of guys on the Mavericks who have found their roles on the team, and they've been kind of killing it lately. Derek Lively's obviously been a great addition at center. Derrick Jones Jr., who's been able to kind of reinvent his career and his play style and who he is.
Yeah, he was like out of the league.
Yeah, and they've found something in this team. That being said, I think this is like Mavericks kind of disaster matchup, like Connor was saying. Just insane on-ball defenders, and you have guys that can score at will, exposing Luka on the outside in coverage, right? The question will be, can Luka just take over games, right? Can Luka and Kyrie combine for 65, 70 points, and can they keep Shea off the line and kind of rattle this young OKC team? We saw in game 1 of the OKC New Orleans series, we were on this podcast, we're like, that series is going 7. New Orleans has something, and of course we were dead wrong. We kind of had the same vibe with Minnesota. I think Minnesota's a more polished team than OKC. But OKC didn't get rattled, and I give them a lot of credit for that. Even at such a young age, they were able to stay calm, play their game, and obviously dominate the Pelicans. I'm super excited to see what they do here against Dallas, because there will be one game, right? Luka's going to score 50, triple-double, and it's going to be like, holy crap, what do we do? But I think OKC, with the talent that they have, I think they have a really great coach, and I think that they're wise beyond their years. I'm going to take OKC in 7 as well.
Yeah, you mentioned the Pelicans series. that game one was huge. That game one was absolutely massive for the Thunder. But the other games, I almost don't care as much. As this is going to sound silly, I don't care as much because the Pelicans are just really a dumb, bad team without Zion. They're just so herky-jerky, and we're just a terrible matchup without Zion Williamson for the Thunder. And maybe it's just my anti-Brandon Ingram bias that I just can't get out of my head. I just can't stand the guy. But what do you guys think about Chet going into this series? Because I think this is going to be a very interesting and telling series for him, because I think he's going to have to step up in a big way. Lou Dort had so much success against Brandon Ingram. He was bodying Brandon Ingram. He was putting him off his spot every single time. Brandon Ingram would try and go blow for blow with him. They'd try to, post up on him. Lou Dort wasn't having any of it. He cooked Brandon Ingram the entire series, seat belt the whole time. I don't think he has anywhere near that similar success against Luka in this series. But I also think a huge part of this is Lou Dort's going to be, when he defends him, Luka's going to have to drive in and then go into Chet. I think Chet's going to have a massive series if the Thunder want to pull this out on the defensive end. Offensively, I don't think he has to play that big of a role in the series. Connor?
I think the difference is going to be with the Pelicans. They don't have nearly the level of finishing that Kyrie and Luka possess at this stage in their career. So when you got Lou Dort or Casey Wallace or J-Dub out there playing one-on-one defense against these guys, you can't expect them to keep Kyrie and Luka outside of three-point line like Lou Dort did to Brandon Ingram. They're not going to be putting these seatbelts. So Chet is going to have to rotate more. He's going to have to be relied more on help defense. And you've got the kind of the mix of water and oil with the Mavs here, where Luka's going to go at his own pace. He's going to be slow. He's going to be methodical. And he's going to pump fake you and get you up in the air. And he's going to draw a foul more times than not. Whereas Kyrie is going balls to the wall at the rim. He's going to do some up and under 360 layup over you. Like, Chet is going to have to really step up and not foul and be disciplined. Because behind him, they have no rim protection. Like, he has to be disciplined in this series. That's the number one takeaway for me.
That's the other thing, is because if Chet gets into foul trouble, there's a chance the tallest player on the court is the other Jalen Williams and P.J. Washington. That's what we're looking at. Like, there's going to be times in this series where P.J. Washington is the biggest five on the court.
Especially with Maxi Kleber out, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, Derek Lively will play some, but if Chet's not in, then Lively kind of isn't going to have as big of a role in this series, I think.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Chase, Shea versus Luka. How much do free throws matter in this series?
Free throws are everything in this series. What do you mean?
I feel like this is just going to be the series. It's just who gets more free throws. Like during the regular season, they're like, what was the difference in this game tonight? It's like, oh, well, one team hit their threes and the other one didn't. That's about as easy as it gets in the regular season at analyzing game by game. I think in these games, it's, who shot more free throws, Luka or Shea? That's who won the game.
Pretty much. Yeah, it's going to be a seven game long game of knockout, I think. I think what the Mavericks need to do here is really their only chance is to outscore OKC. They're just going to have to put up so many points. And like you guys have been saying, OKC needs to find a way to, first off, not fall into that trap.
Wait, the Mavericks have to score more points than the Thunder to win the basketball game? Is that what
That's why you tune in. That's why you tune in.
Dude, A+ analysis. You can't find it anywhere else than on the Karter Cast.
Rumors are swirling that Chase is high as balls on this podcast, but I can neither confirm nor deny these rumors.
No. Can't be more than Gronk last night.
I've been up since 3 a.m. It's like going 20 hours straight here. But no, it's gonna be like Chip Kelly at Oregon. Like, the Mavericks are just going to be like, let's just bomb threes. Let's just get Luka to 50 every game, right? And if OKC falls in that trap of like, all right, let's have a shootout, they're going to be in trouble. And they're going to see themselves fall behind to some of the best shot makers in the entire league in Luka and Kyrie. And so free throws are huge, right? Shea being able to not just shoot whatever he wants, but get the good shots, find the smart ones, expose the matchups, which there are when you play Dallas, right? And be able to find those spots are going to be huge. I think it's going to be a big Shea series. Either it's going to tell us a lot about him, that he's arrived and he's next, or it's going to be like he's not ready. He needs to learn a little bit more. We'll see.
I think it's a great point about the free throws you brought up, because the Mavs typically don't foul a lot. You saw it in the Clipper series where they would shade Harden to his right and they would kind of let him in the lane, but they wouldn't really foul as much as you would expect them to playing defense like that. they're not going to be able to funnel SGA to a certain side like that because he can get to his left, he can get to his right, and he is a master at creating space. They're not going to be able to play that kind of like one-sided defense where like, oh, we're going to funnel you into Derek Lively. Shea's too good for that. He is. He's too good at creating space. That's not going to work. They're going to have to try to play him more one-on-one, and I think they're going to have to try some different things and like run some guys at him. As far as the other side goes, I'm very curious to see how early OKC starts blitzing or trapping Luka and Kyrie, because then it turns into swing, ball reversal, weak side three, and there you got PJ Washington, Derrick Jones Jr., Josh Green, and maybe even Tim Hardaway. The ghost of Tim Hardaway might play in this series. They have to shoot 40% from three on those ball reversals, because eventually when Luka and Kyrie start killing them enough one-on-one, they're going to trap with some of these young athletic wing guys they have on their team. And I'm curious to see how long it takes Mark Daigneault to do that.
Yeah, you mentioned it a couple times already, but that is such a huge part of this series is just those guys like PJ Washington, Derrick Jones stepping up and hitting those shots. I mean, that was kind of the difference for a team like Phoenix in the first round is that Grayson Allen, he gets hurt obviously, but in game one, he couldn't hit a daggum thing. Grayson Allen shoots like he normally does. They win that game. And maybe we're talking about the Suns versus Nuggets in the second round. Yeah, probably not. It was an exaggeration, but
Fair.
You know what I'm saying, though? But like if these role players like Royce O'Neal and Grayson Allen are actually stepping up and hitting those shots, I mean, tonight for the Nuggets is a bad example because the Stars were terrible tonight. But yeah, those guys have to hit shots. Are we sure Seth Curry isn't hanging around somewhere on this Mavericks team?
They might need to bring him out of the locker room. Are they going to switch out the Morris brothers one every game for another series, or are they done? They might be done.
JJ Redick goes back onto his fun time on the Mavericks.
They bring out the ghost of Deshaun Stevenson from the 2011 finals.
Oh, the Jet is back? Jason Terry?
You mean Rodrigue Beaubois?
Michael Finley?
What about Brian Cardinal? All right, we can be done.
Yeah, we're done here.
Get in the weeds.
We're just naming players.
We're just naming players. This would be a 5-hour podcast. We're sitting here with Byron Mullins and Brian.
My gosh, yeah.
Scalabrini's too easy when you do those
Desagna Diop. I mean, we could just get into the weeds.
JJ Barea.
JJ Barea. But whenever someone's like Brian Scalabrine, you're like, okay, you're trying a little too hard, buddy. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, Luke Rittenauer. Now let's cook.
Yeah, now let's cook. I'm sure that's what he said every day on the Timberwolves too, Carter.
And every day remember that one day he got traded like 9 times? I remember he was like they would go on ESPN like Luke Rittenauer in this package to Toronto, in this package to Charlotte, in this package to New Jersey.
They were just begging those trades to be official. Like, put the pen to paper and we're shipping him off to the next city instantly. I mean, we need a contract right now.
It's crazy how many Luke Rittenauer jerseys I own. All right, last thing on this series, OKC Mavs. Series prediction, Connor, go.
I think it's going to be an awesome, fun second-round series, and I think we're going to see a lot of star power, a lot of scoring. Ultimately, I think OKC is the real deal, and I'm taking the Thunder in 7. Thunder and move on in 7 games against the Mavericks.
Chase.
Yeah, I love it. I don't mean to copy Connor, but this is going to be so fun. There's a sense of nostalgia to this series. Like, I know both arenas are going to be bumping. It's going to be a lot of fun. OKC in 7.
I'm going to go Mavs in 7. I think it's going to matter. I think Game 7 having Luka and Kyrie is going to be the difference. I think Kyrie steps up in a massive way in this series. Watch out for Derek Lively, too. Derek Lively PRA is getting played every game. I don't care what happens. I have to keep riding it till it dies. But
I don't want to put a damper on this. Does this kind of feel like a JV series before you get to the winner of Minnesota-Denver? I hate to say it, but did either of these teams really have a chance to make the finals?
yeah,
I actually like both these teams matched up against, assuming Minnesota pulls it off.
yeah.
Really?
I don't like Denver against these teams, or I like Denver against these teams, which is what I'm saying. But I think it's going to be a competitive series no matter what. Even if Denver somehow pulls it off and ends up being like Mavs Nuggets, I still like that series.
Yeah. I think with the 4 teams left in the West, you're going to get a good Western Conference Finals no matter what. I think at the end of the day.
Yeah. OKC just has so much firepower.
They do. I want to give out 2 quick future bets. You ready for this, Carter? You'll love this. I'm taking both the Mavs centers to lead the series in rebounding. Daniel Gafford 15-1, Derek Lively 25-1.
Oh yeah, now you're talking my language. There you go. You just had to say
one
Derek
of those
Lively.
guys one of those guys is going to play their way into 25 to 28 minutes a game against this undersized Thunder team, and I'm playing them both. So
I'm all in on. I love Derek Lively, man. I think he is just so awesome. Like, no, he's not an all-star by any means. No way. He's just a well-coached JaVale McGee. Like, he's just like, hey, I'm a disciplined JaVale McGee. I'm not going to do something stupid, but he still has some of those like silly tendencies. But it's not like to his own detriment. It's just like he misses an easy layup. It's not like he's throwing the ball into the upper level for some reason. He's not on Shaq
taking off from the 3-point line. Yeah.
Yeah, he's not on Shaq in a full every night. But he has like little silly tendencies like JaVale McGee, but he has the athleticism and the rim running and the defense. I think he's a better rim protector. But yeah, I love Derek Lively. I love that. I'm riding that 100%. Let's close up here on the series previews. Gross. Let's just gross. Celtics.
All right,
Cavs.
that'll be the show, guys. We'll see you later.
Yeah, Celtics Cavs. The series line for this one is Celtics minus 3,000 right now on FanDuel, and the Cavs are plus 1120. So you put $10 down on the Cavs to win this series, and if they somehow pull off a miracle, you win $111. Yay!
That sounds awesome. Chase, I'll go ahead and start here real quick. I was looking earlier and I was like, man, is there a world where Cleveland can be competitive? Like Porzingis is out, and Boston, that late game offense was, a little bit alarming throughout the regular season. And then they put away Miami, but Miami's bad. And I was like, man, is there a path for Cleveland to take this to 6 or 7? And then I splashed some cold water on my face, and I was like, what are you thinking? This is not going past 5 games. I don't care who's playing. They can start Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser. This Cleveland team is cooked. They are done. They're begging to go to Cancun. Donovan Mitchell was completely pissed the last few games. I'm surprised they beat the Magic, honestly. Give me Boston in 5. I'll just go ahead and say it. That's all I got.
Chase?
All right, I like it. Yeah, give me Cavs in 7. I'm just kidding.
LeBron's not walking through that door, Chase.
No. Look, everything that you think and have heard is right. Like this Cavs team, as long as Dean Wade isn't shooting out of his mind, really doesn't have a chance against Boston. I think Donovan has one crazy game. He's had a good playoff so far.
I was going to say that Donovan Mitchell 50-point game 2 is going to hit like literal crack for Cavs fans.
And they still might lose it.
No, but I just know
Garland goes 3 for 18.
Yeah, Cleveland's going to win one of the 3 games, even if it's game 3, right? The first take the next morning is going to be like panic time for the Celtics. Kendrick Perkins going to be wondering if they should blow it up next season. But no, Boston's got this in 5. If it goes 6, it's a disappointment for them. It could even be a sweep.
Spin zone. Spin zone. Does Boston want this to go 6 or 7 to give Porzingis more of a little bit of a break there before the conference finals?
Look,
I'm just kidding. But
checkers or chess? Nah, you want to put this away. But I think if there ever was going to be a team that, like, for some reason had some weird problems for Boston, it would be this dumb Cleveland team because it's just Boston, and I'm a fan, so I know how stupid they can be. But all things on paper point to Boston 5.
As a Celtics fan, I know I mention this all the time to you, just texting off air and even on air as well. You have to be worried about the end of the game stuff. Let's say it's 110, a minute left. Donovan Mitchell's hitting that shot. He's gonna cook at the end, and you're gonna get ready for that Jason Tatum, trying to imitate Kobe in the driveway, fadeaway mid-range shot. That's just double teamed.
Yeah, Michael Jordan could be wide open on the block, and I don't think he wouldn't pass it. But I think Russillo was talking about this with Simmons, how this series could turn into like Mitchell's like, hey, look what I can do, and Tatum's like, all right, bet I can do that too. And that's where it gets a little bit dangerous for Boston. But the thing is, Tatum's not the only guy here. They have about 4 other guys that can go and get you shots and do this. And so they're gonna if he doesn't wake himself up, they will, and that's not going to end up being a problem here. Maybe for one game, I could see that, right? If he's like the last 3 minutes, he's like, I'm the guy, this is me, but it's not going to happen.
Even without Porzingis, there's a world where the Celtics will have 3 of the 4 best players on the court with Tatum, Brown, and Derek White. And if they had Porzingis, it'd be 4 of the best 5. Maybe not if Garland, shows up this series, but Karter talked about late game stuff with Boston. I don't feel great about Cleveland in the late game. oh, we're going to have Jared Allen come set a pick, and then 25% three-point shooter Evan Mobley is going to be spotting up on the swing. That doesn't really scare me.
No, the late game it's Donovan Mitchell chucking and it's Tatum chucking. Who's hitting the dumb shot? I'm taking
Donovan
Mitchell.
Mitchell is 100%. Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
That's these end of games by both teams are disasters, but I'm taking Mitchell to hit the dumb shot instead of Tatum. Chase, real quick, if the Celtics somehow did lose the series with, Porzingis obviously not, but no injuries involved, no more injuries involved, I should say, and the Celtics somehow lose this series, you got to blow it up, right? And it's done.
No, you don't blow it up because the roster's
blow
one of
it
the best. It's one of the best. No.
You guys
Listen,
you guys turn into the Jeff Teague Hawks if you guys lose this series.
No, Carter, knock it off. Listen.
Goodbye, Jaylen Brown.
No, listen. The roster's one of the best constructed in a long time. You fire Joe Mazzulla before he steps on the team plane. If that happens, that's where you need to make some changes. But
if they
not
go
the
down
roster.
like 2-0. If they go down 2-0 like the Nuggets, does Brad Stevens fire him right after game 2? It's like, all right, I'll just coach the rest of the playoffs. Like, we cannot screw this up. We cannot screw this up.
Dude, maybe
awesome.
to get Danny Ainge back real quick, see if he can.
Yeah, Danny Ainge is like, hey, Will Hardy, can you go? It's like a substitute teacher. He's like, hey, you want to fill in over there in Boston for the rest of the playoffs? Like, no big deal. They'll pay a couple million. Like,
Yeah.
Or if you're Boston, you give Milwaukee a call and say, hey, how many picks for Doc Rivers? We need him back. He's the man for the job.
Then you would need to blow it up. Then just get rid of it all.
I heard
Throw
Simmons
an
and
organization
Russillo
in the trash.
Simmons and Russillo were talking about Doc Rivers like missed his chance to be the Lakers coach, and it's a real shame we don't get to see Doc Rivers coaching the LeBron-led Lakers, because that's all I've ever wanted. I mean, that's just everything we need in basketball is Doc Rivers coaching a LeBron team. It would be perfect.
That would be
Perfect
awesome.
television.
That would be.
That'd be cinema.
Real quick, it's Cavs Celtics predictions. I'll start off. I think Celtics win 4-0. Give them the sweep, get the brims out. I think Mitchell does have a 50-point game in this series, and I still think the Celtics win that game anyways. I think the Celtics got the monkey off their back against the Heat. I think they're playing with a lot less pressure now. They're done with the Heat. They don't have to think about them. They come out firing like they did all regular season, even without Porzingis. Give me Boston 4, Connor.
The one thing that worries me with Boston is you're relying a lot on an aging, elderly Al Horford down low against 2 7-footers that are in their prime. So that might be a little bit worrisome, and that's why I'm going Boston in 5, not 4. I feel like there'll be one game where Cleveland's just more physical, Tatum doesn't have a good rebounding game, and Donovan Mitchell has 45 points, and maybe Cleveland does steal one. So I'll go Boston in 5, but I don't think it's ever really in doubt.
Chase.
Yeah, it seems Connor's forgotten about a certain player. His name's Luke Cornett. He's kind of the GOAT. So, no problem
fair.
there with Allen or Mobley. No, I'm just kidding. Boston's silly. They're going to lose a game. I know this team, but that'll be it. Boston in 5.
You guys, we could take Cavs to sweep at 80-1.
You might as well just put leading scorer Dante DiVincenzo next game at that number.
Yeah.
That's
I might emotionally
that's a
hedge and just do that.
That's a way better bet. Dante DiVincenzo might be the leading scorer next game. He might have 40 points.
Real question, if the Celtics trotted out Pritchard and Hauser and Tillman and these bench guys, how many games do they win? They still might get 1 or 2.
Peyton Pritchard has a lot of DJ Augustine in him. He's got that DJ Augustine in him. We're like, game 1, he's like, yes, this is my time. Game 2, 6 of 31 shooting, AAU style.
If you're a Celtics fan, you got to be worried about that Cavs end-of-season Game 82 lineup of Imani Bates, Pete Nance, Isaiah Mobley, Tristan Thompson, and Damian Jones, because they, against the Swarm.
They couldn't beat
Today-
JT Thor.
Boston, they posted today on their socials that their ready up team, which is basically just all the bench guys, were like running 5s, and they like posted highlights. And I think that they would beat the Bulls in a 7-game series. I'm not joking. They looked pretty good.
You just get Speed Mahailu out there getting like 8 threes. We
Yeah,
know him
man.
all too well in Charlotte.
Jordan Walsh was cooking.
Oh my gosh. Real quick, Chase, you wanted to bring up something.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you guys. We have all the round 1 exits now. It's official. Of all the round 1 exits, which team which team is going to have the biggest ramifications, the biggest overreactions, going to make the dumbest move, all the above having been round one exit.
Connor.
I'm going to start here, and I'm going to give probably an obvious one. I'm going to say the New Orleans Pelicans. But in the long run, I think it's for the best. I think if they do make some rational move, like giving Ingram away for 60 cents on the dollar, I think that's kind of addition by subtraction. And we've been trashing Ingram a lot on this podcast, but they're in prime position to be like, all right, we've got a ton of young talent, some of them on pretty good contract deals right now. We got to take advantage of this. And they're going to be the first team to make one of those big moves. I really do feel that way. Some of the other big hitters like the Suns, the Clippers, they've kind of, made their bed. They have to lie in it. They've got all these guys on contracts. Ultimately, the Clippers, I think, are going to pay Paul George the max, and we're going to see the same roster next year. They're kind of landlocked. So that's why I'm like, New Orleans has some flexibility. I think that's the right answer here.
I think New Orleans is the right answer. We saw the interview with the Pelicans GM as well. It's got to be them because C.J. McCollum and Brandon Ingram, he basically subtweeted them in that interview saying, hey, we've seen them play together. We've seen them with Zion. We know it's not going to work. We need to try something different. We need to try something different right away. I think the Pelicans is the right answer. I told you guys this before when we brought up this segment off air. The Magic are in a scary spot. If you're no, where they're not going to make these rash changes, trade Franz Wagner or anything like that. But they're in that scary spot as these small franchise teams, like we know very well in Charlotte, where they have a lot of cap space in a piss-poor free agent market where they're going to give a lot of money to someone who doesn't deserve a lot of money. That's a scary, scary spot to be in. If they get it right and they sign the right guy or they get a little short-term deal where it's like 2 years or something, that's fine. But I would be very worried if I'm a Magic fan and all of a sudden you're like, wait, who did we sign 5 years, $200+ million? Like, this is crazy.
Yeah. Well, that's the sweet spot. You can't pull a 5-year, $150 million Nick Batum-like contract on a lower level player. You can't fall into that trap. But if you're the Magic, you have to blow this cap space on somebody. I'm fine with them giving Clay or Malik Monk 2 years for $45 million. That's not going to hurt anybody's development. It's not going to hurt their cap situation in the long run. But I would be very hesitant in giving out any deal over 2 or 3 years if I'm the Orlando Magic.
Can I think I might be stealing Chase's answer here, but the Miami Heat might be the sneaky one. Go ahead, Chase. I'll let you take this one away then. I hate stealing your answer.
Hey, man, the Miami Heat. Pat Riley is throwing shots at Jimmy Butler in press conferences.
Tyler Hero.
And Tyler Hero. Eric Spoelstra, he tried every bit of voodoo magic he could, and it just didn't work this year. So where do they go from here, right? Look, the Heat are always going to be the Heat. Heat culture is a real thing as long as Riley's, running that team and Spoelstra's sitting on that bench. It's just a matter of, is Jimmy going to stay? Is he going to be a part of that team? And I don't know. I'm not tapped into the Heat, but I don't think you say that a lot about a player if you're super excited to keep him, right, and pay him a bunch of money. And if you're Jimmy Butler, is your time in Miami done? Have you given it your best run and you couldn't get out of the first round? You see the roster you have. Tyler Hero's not who you thought he was. All of these things are kind of coming down on you, and so why not try it somewhere else? It's a matter of what he does. Yeah. Go ahead, Karter.
To Philly. I think the other sneaky answer is the Bucks. And not by their own doing. I think it's by Giannis's and what happens there. I don't think the Bucks ownership, they're like, please run this back. We're the Milwaukee effing Bucks. We get to be relevant for more time. But if Giannis is like, man, I love what's going on in New York, man. Like, I'm gonna force my way. I got my super max. I got my super mega triple nuclear max deal. I don't give a crap now. I can request my way out and go to New York and win a ring because the Bucks situation's looking a little shaky too.
Yeah,
that's
I think
scary.
That's fair.
Sorry, what's so scary about the Clippers and the Bucks? How many times can you just sit there and blame injuries, right? And how many times until
or the
you
Sixers.
finally, right? Or the Sixers. And how many times are you finally going to be like, all right, we have to do something about it? I don't know if the Bucks are on that yet because they want to keep everyone. It's the Clippers that I'd be a little worried about as far as are they going to make a move because you've done this for how many years now? You've given, you're watching Shea take his team to potentially the Western Conference Finals, at least past you, right? Every year. Mm-hmm. You've watched all your draft picks turn into these awesome things for OKC, and you're sitting here with half a leg Kawhi, right? And a team that's gone nowhere for a long time. So we'll see what happens with LA. But like you said, Connor, they are kind of landlocked, and I don't know why you wouldn't pay Paul George, but it just hasn't worked for so long. So what do you do?
two things. One, fun fact, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he was a Hornet for about 20 minutes. 20 minutes on draft night.
Never forget.
Never forget. Never forget. The other thing, too, is how much do you guys think the Clippers opening their new stadium plays into, hey, we need to bring these guys back?
It's worth mentioning. I think having that star power and having 3 very marketable superstars, there is something to be said about that. I don't think it's the end-all, be-all, but that will play into it. But Steve Ballmer's not afraid to open his pocketbook.
Yeah, because you have to be relevant when you're opening a new stadium like that, and you want to bring fans in, and that first season truly matters, and they have to be a playoff team. They don't have to win it. They're not going to be NBA Finals contenders. I am excited, though, because I feel like people are going to turn heavily on the Clippers when they run it back inevitably next year. And then I'm just going to bet the Clippers win total over 40.5, 41.5, because people are going to overreact, and then we're going to see the exact same trajectory next year. In January, everyone's like, dude, the Clippers, if they stay healthy, they're going to win. And like, buddy, we've seen it 10 years. They're not staying healthy. We've seen it every single year of their existence. They're either going to choke or not stay healthy. The Clippers are a cursed franchise. It's not happening.
If you're the Clippers marketing team, what do when you market a regular season ticket package? You're like, oh, come see Kawhi and Paul George, maybe.
Norman Powell.
No. What you need to do is say, hey, come watch Bones Highland take 45 shots against the Wizards on a Tuesday night in December. And that is your selling point right there.
That should be the Agua Caliente Clippers marketing team.
Come watch Bones Highland team up with Daniel Tice in a one-night-only event.
Can Armando Bacot take on the Agua Caliente Clippers? Up next. On
New
Facebook
signing
Live.
Mahmoud Diakite.
Aren't G League games on Facebook Live?
I think they're on YouTube Live and GLeague.com.
Oh, okay.
I think so. It is.
That's fair.
I actually did some Swarm games and My 48 local news.
Shout out. Yeah. Shout out. That's all I tune into. I have season tickets living in Utah. Anything else before we go?
Pat Riley comments. I know we touched on it. I think that's what every owner says behind closed doors, and he just has the reputation and the confidence and the balls to just come out and finally say it in public. And if you're him, I think he's kind of in the right here. I know publicly calling out your players is not a great look, but the actual content of what he's saying, I'm kind of with him. I'd be frustrated too.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just like Charles Barkley as an owner is just saying it in a better way. Just hey, quit being soft, play games, play in the regular season, and hey, you're on the bench, you're not even playing, shut up. Be quiet.
Yeah.
You're making this worse for everyone. I 100% agree with Riley's comments. Chase, Connor, anything else?
NBA playoffs are back. I mean, they've always been there for us, but this has been super exciting couple of weeks. And I think the NBA's nailed this. And I've seen a lot of awesome players, a lot of close games. It's been so sweet. I think the playoffs are back. They just need better people behind the mics. And that would complete the deal.
Yeah.
And in the stripes. Behind the mics and in the stripes.
I'll be honest. I thought last year's playoffs would never end. I thought they were terrible. I think the Nuggets-Lakers series was fun, but you knew the Nuggets were going to win that series. And then, the Heat-Celtics was just funny. But the problem was, yeah, it's funny, but the Heat-Nuggets was the worst finals I've ever watched in my life.
I think it got worse as it progressed last year because you had a couple awesome round one series. Kings Warriors was insane,
Yeah,
and then you had the Suns Nuggets matchup, which was awesome because Booker and KD would just take 40 shots each every night, and then Lakers, that series was fun as well. And then as it kind of got stale as it went on because by the end of it, you're like, oh, Nuggets Heat, the Heat improbable run, but deep down, you knew they weren't beating Denver. So I'm with you on that. This year, it's just so unpredictable, and we're seeing it right now with the defending champs down 0-2. I think it's a lot of fun. I agree.
Yeah. All right. Well, that'll do it from us. Make sure to download the SeatGeek app. Go to SeatGeek.com. Use code KarterCast. $20 off your first purchase. $50 minimum purchase required. Terms and conditions do apply. Go to SeatGeek.com. That's KarterKast for $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek. Thank you to SeatGeek for sponsoring today's episode. Make sure to follow all of us on social media at Chase_Rogers0, Connor_Sparrow. Karter B8 at KarterCast on all social media. Subscribe, rate, review on Apple, Spotify, podcast, wherever you're listening. Subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on all social media, like I said before. And we'll be back. We'll probably do an episode sooner rather than later this time for the NBA. We'll probably do one later this week or even this weekend. And we'll be back, and we'll see y'all next time. Bye.